next thing we need to work on is the calyx for your rose. And I've already prepared some green ahead of time here. And there's several different colors of green that's on the market as far as the paste colors. It's up to you entirely which green you want to use for your roses. I kind of like this. It comes in a package as a neon green, but I think it's a real nice light green to use. Alright, so we'll get that prepared and get that rolled out. And I only need one here. Now if you were doing a lot of different roses, then of course you just cut out as many as you need. And I like to get this somewhat thin, but not too thin like the roses were. And I think I got that side too thin, so we'll roll out another edge here. There we go. And then just take a calyx cutter, and there's, like I said, if you have the Wilton kit, this comes with it. But if you don't, there's many that you can buy in a package on the market. And you just cut that little calyx out, pull that aside. And one little thing that I like to do to dress up mine is to take an X-Acto knife or any kind of sharp knife that you have, and then right on each side of the little petals here, I like to put little cut marks, because if you look at a regular rose, it has like little tiny marks on the edges. And then I just do usually 3 of those all the way around. And hopefully you can see that pretty well. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy, just enough to give it that look. And 1, 2, 3. And then another 3 here. And some of them look kind of wild, but that's okay. And then I also like to take my ball tool and just lengthen each one just a tad bit. You don't want to press too hard. Just rub that ball tool down each little arm. And we'll loosen that off the board a little bit, because I'm sure it's stuck now after I've pressed down and everything. I like to turn it over. Well, there we go. We'll just have it on that side for the video purposes. Alright, take your rose that you've already prepared, and you want to take the wire and put it right in the center. And then turn over. Oops, stuck to my finger. You don't want it to do that. And it ripped a little bit, but that's okay. And then just let it fall over top your flower. Now you would put a little bit of water on here before you put this on, but since I just did this rose, it should be plenty wet enough to hold that on. Now, I like to let mine set up, because as you see, it's falling around. See, it's hanging down too much and looking kind of funky. Let me put a little bit of water on there just to get that effect so I can show you what it will look like. Now you may want to let it sit up for a few, like this, and you can actually turn your wire like so, and they have little racks that you can use, and they're called flower drying racks, and you can hang them on the little lines. I use whatever. Sometimes I'll put a little rod across my little toolbox that I use and just hang that to dry. And then you'll get this effect here, and it turns out really, really nice, like so. And see those little cuts? Make it look just like a real rose does. There you go. Okay, the next step I was going to show you is how to color these roses with chalk. Okay, earlier I told you I would show you the cutters that I actually use now that I have to make a rose. And I bought these as a kit. This is actually the petal cutter. So we're not too far off using a circle for the petal. And actually you would do it like this. So it's not too bad using the circle cutter like we've been using. And this is the calyx cutter. Then you actually have a leaf cutter here. And I didn't go over the leaves with you because they're relatively simple. This is actually a cutter. It took me a while to figure out what this was when I bought it. But this actually cuts out thorns to put on the actual wire to give it that realistic effect, which I thought was really, really cool. So anyway, I said I was going to show you how to color your roses with chalk. And I have just a non-toxic chalk that I use. And you can use any color that you want. I'm actually going to use a purple. And I take a knife or whatever you have with a flat side and just shave off the chalk like so. And you don't need much because it actually goes quite a ways. And then what you do is take your rose and I just put my paintbrush into the chalk, get a good amount on there, like so. You can look at that and I'll show you how much I have on there. And then I hold this over the paper plate. And then I just highlight the edges. I don't color the whole thing. And this is sometimes a messy job. You will have chalk all over you. But first of all, I start off just going over the edges with the powder. And it looks really nice when you get it all finished. I do the outer edges of the petals, just really to highlight it. And then we'll do up here. Now if you want to color the entire rose, that's fine too, you can do that. But I think it looks prettier just coloring the very edges of each petal. And I just go over each one, each petal, with a little bit of color. And then on the very top, I just kind of get right down in there. Let me pull that up so you can see a close-up on that. Hopefully you can see the highlighting that I'm doing on here. And it's also a good idea to get underneath the rose as well. If you're going to see it in your arrangement, then that's a really good idea to color under as well. And I color a little bit more on those so that it gives it a nice finished look. And then I blow it off. And I like getting down in the crevices here just to make sure that the base is colored real nicely. And that's what you end up with. And I'll show you the underside. Then you just blow it off. For the sake of the camera today, I'm using a pan that I boiled some water in, and I have a bowl over top of it keeping the steam in. Normally I would use my teapot, but just to give you a quick show of how I do this, just lay that right over top. Just hang it right over top of the steam coming up out of there. Now you just take it over just a few seconds, and that's all you need. And you'll be able to tell by looking at the rose it'll give it a nice sheen to them. Let me hold that sideways so you can get a good look at that. There you go. Yeah, you should be able to see it right there. If you hold it on too long, it'll start to turn your fondant like a plastic, or your gum paste like a plastic, or it may even melt the flowers because that steam's really, really hot. But that's what you end up with. That turned out pretty nice. And I'll actually show you a couple others that I've done in the past.